And we are live. Hello and welcome. This is YuleTide Tom. This is Thomas in Christmas special hangout.
Mm.
And today I have a special guest from Sweden. It's Tony. And Tony is has just been telling me about some of the things going on in Sweden with the groups and what they're doing. So, would you like to introduce yourself and tell a bit about it?
Mm. In in the exopoliticals, we have started up a group, Exopolitical Sweden or Sverige, because Exopolitical Sweden are a group on the Facebook. When you write in English, this group starts in Sweden.
Yes.
We have started up then 21st of November. And we met outside here in Jämtland, in the middle of the Sweden.
Yes.
A man called Magnus uh, have invited us to a place. There have been lots of sightings and a mystical place, we call it. And he had bought a tower on the top of the mountain, a tower they used to look for aircraft and so on under the war. It's an old tower, and this tower they were outside and looking, and on the night on 21st November, and they didn't see anything, but it was the first time the group meeting, and they tried this meditation from Stephen Greer. They have a phone with them and play the meditation and try it for the first time.
Yes. Yes. That's what most people do, or a lot of people do at least. Start with the meditations from Stephen Greer. That's
Yes,
my wife in the background.
yes.
So that's a great place to start.
Mm.
But as you said, you were talking about the sacred places, and uh, as we talked before, we started the live hangout. um, we were talking about earlier. We had conversations in chat rooms and on Facebook about the sacred places, and this is a Christmas special, and
Yes,
I agree that I think there's some places that has a special significance and has a lot of human culture and had a lot of human-based conscious activity, or how should I put it?
yes,
Also, are great places for contact.
yes. We I have a website, Magical Spots, Magical Spots
Yes,
in Sweden, then. And we collect magical spots. And these magical spots, there you can have UFO contact, you call elves, what you call fairies, and different kinds of experience, extra parapsychical um, uh, findings and so on. And a lot of these places is in old cult and cult places when there have been graveyards and old graveyards for the Vikings and so on. And stones are they put up stones and so on.
yes.
And
We also have sites like that in Denmark, and well, actually, close to where we are right now, there's old burial mounds from the Bronze Age, or from
yes,
all the way back. And I think when we were talking some time ago, when we were chatting or talking
mm,
about this, I was telling you that we had this experience when we went to Yarnu with Bastian, who was also also been in Hangout.
Mm.
This was also a place that you can find the Stone Age flint arrowheads and stuff like that. And there has been people living there for 11,500 years. So we think that places like that has a deeper connection,
Mm.
just for the fact that that's where people have been for so long.
This place, we look for places in Sweden because Hästdalen, you know,
Yes, yes.
Norway, it is not so far away from here. It's
No.
not so it's a type of place also. We have been there and look.
Yes.
And
I
this
know that about Hästdalen because there's actually people from the ET Let's Talk network. I know, and Linda, who was in the hangout in the spring with Kate, they went to Hästdalen this summer for you know for making contact and a lot of deep meditation, and I think they also did an ayahuasca ceremony, you know, to really connect. So I know that we know that these places are here, you know, and we also hear a lot about places in South America where there's a lot of activity. So there, it seems like a reasonable, you know, assumption that there are sacred places like this.
These type of places, we collect them on our website and put up the GPS coordinates for them and write a little about the places, and maybe we take a video or pictures and so on and explain what's happened. And then we interview for people who have experience on these places. So that's what we do in the magical spots.
Yes.
And because they're interesting because you can use these places for contact. We think that the places is the best way to be at this type of places.
Exactly, and also a lot of these places are also, you know, very secluded. You know, far away from the busy lights of and life of the city. A lot of these places are found, you know, in very calm and pristine surroundings.
Yes, yes.
And we also think that is that is very important for, or can be very facilitate the contact, because, you know, at least, you know, the ET Let's Talk protocols or contact protocols when you're initiating this contact is based on the belief that there will only be a good contact if it's safe for you and for them. And so if you're in a place where it's secluded and perhaps a bit away from other people, the chances are that you can have a better contact experience, because they're not going to come near if they're going to scare people somewhere else. So that's
what we found out of these places is you can see them if you is near. They've been near you in these places, but outside these places you can't see them as well. But if you take this type of contact that most of these exopolitics have is often about some small stars who moves up in the sky, and this is different. But the people we have interviewed is near contacts.
Well,
we have interviewed some people in Sweden who have this kind of contact, and they have landed before, and they have talked to them, the aliens and so on.
Yes, yes.
It was rather long ago, but
Well,
haven't recent.
no, but I think it's pretty fair to assume that the people have met uh, extraterrestrial beings
Mm.
face to face, or at least in what is a perceived reality, um, or holographic reality, whatever. But
Mm.
in such a way that it's not possible to distinct uh, reality from the from whatever created the experience. But but um, but as you said, some of these things happened a long time ago, and I think some of the more credible experiences, they talk about having perhaps had this in 40 years of contact experiences,
Yes.
having met face to face an extraterrestrial being
We,
twice.
we have lot of this type of interviews and met a lot of people in Sweden who have had this contact. But I can't, if I should talk about this, I should wish to have some pictures and try to write it down in English with English interviews and so on. And this hangout, what you call it, was.
Yes.
I haven't planned for it at all because,
No, but
as I
that's
say, yeah, I saw you when I look around for this meeting, and so
yeah,
and I click on and I
that's
found that you were on.
that's very nice.
If I shall talk about all these contacts, I have videos and I have to translate what they say, and that's because my English is not so good because I don't talk English so
I
much.
think I think
And
you're doing.
I haven't read so much English in the school because I'm now 70 years old and we learn not so much English in the school and I only read. I don't talk it. And when I write, I use translation. I use another way and can look for it long time and fix the words and do everything.
I think you're doing just fine, Tony. I think I
That's
really am.
trouble because if I could talk about, I could tell you about all these stories, what
Yes,
I meet and so on.
but I think what you're saying about a lot of the how should I say the visual contact experience, seeing the UFOs or the starcraft in the sky are mostly not that exciting, uh, so much as except from the conscious space contact when you get reaction with the lasers or whatever,
Mm.
when there's how should I, when there's an interaction between the the watcher and the craft. That's
Mm.
what makes it exciting. But visually, actually, when you try to film it on a, it's not that that's it's not that exciting for people. But I think also the interesting a big part of this contact is the contact that goes on within with the conscious space contact. And how do you describe that or capture that? But we've been fortunate enough to actually on a few occasions get some video of these phenomenon,
Okay.
and not just the lights way up in the sky, because we don't even try to film that because we don't have you, that's not really such a huge part of what we do. When we have the chance, we film these things with the old video gear. But we had a visitor on New Year's evening, and I think that's actually pretty interesting because it was flying around over the town of Vejle, where we at that time. Now I'm located somewhere else, a bit outside. But it was flying around over town twice actually, so we could. The second time it flew around, I was out there with my video camera to film the fireworks just after midnight, and that was not a light far away. That was like a orange glowing plasma orb or something, and very close. And I was thinking, wow, it's right over town. But on the other hand, that evening, people won't be scared by if they see something in the sky because there's a lot of fireworks going on. They could just say, "Oh, that's a flare. That's whatever," But it definitely was not, and that was very very interesting. But like you were talking about, we were talking about the how to try and initiate the contact. And I think the meditation is what is mostly known, but there's various ways of doing it. And I think that you mentioned Stephen Greer. That's a great place to start. But just the technique of how you come into a meditative state can be done in various ways, and people use different means of doing this. And
But how can you be sure that you have contact in the mental, in the inside, or what you call in the do you have a real contact, or do you don't have a what you call it when
as
you don't sure what it is you have contact with?
on the well, that's interesting because that's what is it that what is your guide, what is your contact, what's going on? And for me personally, I really don't know. And but I'm pretty sure that there's something going on, and I'm in contact with a being or an entity, whatever you want to call it. That's it might be earthly. I don't know. You could call it a spirit guide, whatever. But I tend to think that some of the things you know when you start having, if you have astral or out of body experiences or travels or what you do when you're doing the contact protocol, some of the things you see seem so likely to be extraterrestrial that it doesn't that it that you can't rule it out. I'd rather say that. But when I started, actually, and now it's been years now, but when I started doing the meditation, I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. Not for a long time. And when I started having the astral, getting better at the visualization and these things, I was sure that everything I was seeing was not aliens or extraterrestrials, but that was other human beings doing the same kind of thing. The out of body astral, seeing the energies of other people, remote viewing, and actually it was, but then suddenly at one point I realized that some of the things I was seeing, and it didn't look very different, and that's what I'm saying. That's not, the conscious based contact and the meditation and all this thing. That's exactly what binds us together, I think, with these beings. So, and that's what makes us have things in common, or how should I put it? Because yes, I don't, and so they don't look that they don't look that different. It's not like a sci-fi show or something.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
but that's
yeah.
just
Wonder
my
because
personal experience, and I think actually my contact is actually very it's very limited somehow. But it's been a very interesting experience, and a lot of the contact has been about not so much the lights in the sky and capturing these things, but about the inner development. About a lot of the meditation techniques and stuff. I've been I've kind of trying my way forward, and a lot of these things actually came from the guide somehow. At least confirmation, and a lot of it had to do about not where you're from, this planet, what planet, or a messages about saving the world or anything, but was actually about how to improve your meditation to sharpen the conscious based contact
mm,
somehow.
yeah, it's rather smart to do in that way because, as I think about them, they are. If you do the physical contact, they land and so on in a, called the can
Hmm.
ship.
Hmm.
Uh, there'll be a lot of interest from the military and so on
Oh,
because
oh.
they definitely want to build that type of ship and could put them in some bombs in them and go around and kill people in some way. They want to know the techniques. And so I found out they are not so interested of doing this type of contact because if you do the mental contact only, there are no ships and so on, and you can do it without anyone rather interested of from the authorities and the military and so on, because what Stephen Greer talks about is the military way to do this thing, because they want to have the techniques, because they have and the military have put a lot of money in to do remote viewing. That we
Oh,
know.
oh yes.
That's known, but all the other things we don't know. Stephen talks about it, and I don't know what's real or true about this or not. But
No, that's
so that way you explained it, your own development and finding a way and so on. It's they are not so interested of you and others on doing this because they can't use it.
but I think it has to do with it's kind of like we are on a lot of people always saying we're on the verge of a new age, and I agree. And sometimes it's confusing for people because I think that tomorrow this is everybody's gonna know about the UFOs and they're gonna land on the White House. But when I'm saying this is part, I think this is part of the evolution that you go through as a species. That it's true. I also think we're on the verge of a different age, a different time where the contact will be open and or more open and more understood, and but it's also kind of like we have to leave the industrial age with our tribal warfare and this low vibration behind to expect a more open contact. But when I say that, it's also in a context that says, well, but it's 200,000 years of human history at least, and all know that what we know about human history is probably not that quite that accurate. But in that context, if if the open contact happens in 100 years, it's still on the verge of that.
Mm.
So we see all these things, and we see all these indications, and we have all these, and the science is more and more coming behind some of these things, especially about the science of consciousness and the quantum physics and all this realm of entanglement and and all this opens up so many possibilities that you can't just, you know, not this off or ridicule this or keep, telling people are crazy, because there's definitely something going on.
Mm.
And we're finally getting to a point where we can, you know, try to understand some of this on a deeper level. So that's
How about time scale do you have on this for the Earth? The contact. If that's what you talk about, you talk about a long time scale. It's not quick fix now, and the ET land and they come out and say, you have your new energy source, and we can fix everything for you, and so on. Jesus has come now, or something like that. What do you think?
I think, I very much resonate with the ET Let's Talk philosophy and all this, that they are not here to save us or anything like that. It's more of a promise that if we can save ourselves, they show that it's possible to evolve into a galactic universal
Mm.
civilization. But I also think, there's all this talk about evil aliens, telepathic aliens, split up. I think I've always tried to. I was more tried a more philosophical uh, approach.
Mm.
Thing, what what evolvement will you have to go through when you become telepathic, for instance? That's an interesting question. If you can read everybody's mind,
Mm.
when you talk with human beings about that, everybody goes, "But that's horrible." Yes, because because we're not very advanced beings. But I think, so when you come to that point, what can happen? Well, you can become a highly evolved ethical being,
Mm.
where you, through training your consciousness and really rigorously shed all your negative emotions. I mean, and I'm sure there's beings like that, because I think when people have contact with higher beings, extraterrestrial beings, they often say, I felt this overwhelming feeling of love. I was like smothered in love. It was all around me, and I felt great. And I think, well, yes, because that's the natural state of a being that's totally telepathical, because they're very pure thought. But it's not that they like you, especially much. They're like everybody who will have that conscious based contact will feel like that. And then perhaps there's another way could be, you don't shed your thought, bad whatever, but you shed your feelings instead and become a totally logical being, like Mr. Spock from Star Trek.
Mm.
So from a human standpoint, when you interpret these things, the logical beings, or beings, higher beings ruled by logic, might seem very evil. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
I think that's what my personal thoughts about it is, because we don't really know a lot, And that's that's where the philosophy comes in, and I like to think about what are the possibilities. And one thing for sure is that if you try to use human morals, standards, ethics,
Mm.
and all these things to understand the possible, you know, the consequences of contact and life in the universe and blah blah blah, blah, you have a tendency to go into a bit of fear-based, uh, paradigm.
Mm.
Well, we are so evil and we are not good to each other, and what if, what if, what if, what if? But I think to become a truly galactic civilization, or you have to overcome those fears
Mm.
somehow. So there's nothing to be afraid of as such, I think. So
Yes, I think it's rather smart to do in that way. That we discussed before, that if they do a physical contacts, then you scare people. You can skip. And I'm afraid about, if you're doing these type of contacts, a physical thing, you be like, people can start, when you burn witches, you burn
hmm
them before, they can start this type of thing again,
hmm
because then you threaten the people. When you do this mental contact, like you're talking about, they
yes.
can't start chasing witches or something like that, because you think you're crazy in some way, or they don't. It doesn't matter, because you can't do nothing about the threat to them at all.
Well, and that's another thing is because you can say, as you said, what threats do meditating people pose to anybody? So even if you think this is all wacko or whatever,
Yes.
the benefits of meditation and are not just uh, being able to have contact if you're lucky or how can do it, but they are they are real, and I can tell for myself that my my blood pressure and these things have been really really good
Mm.
for the past 3 years, and my upper body strength. I have bad legs because I have two injuries to my Achilles tendons. So I couldn't sit still when I was younger. But my upper body strength has also increased uh, from the breathing. I think just so as I said, it's hard to find that this is can be some kind of threat
Mm.
to anybody, except of course, perhaps that's all the way the system is made and built. This is kind of like dropping out and says, I don't care, what you say or what you think. I'm gonna do my own stuff.
Mm.
We've been talking a lot about that in each talk, and generally in all these different groups. And
Mm.
people have always kind of looking for the smoking gun or the next big event in exopolitics that will blow the lid, blah 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 blah. But now more and more people are saying, no, forget about that. Don't care about that. We're just gonna become more and more and more people doing this,
Mm.
and at some point they won't be able to ignore us, and they won't be able to ridicule this. And
Mm.
that's probably how uh, the big, you know, breakthrough is going to come somehow in I think. And also another thing is that a lot of the people, in this, I'm 47, you're 70, and we're actually pretty old. I think that a lot of the young people are not that, you know, have that fear-based paradigm or whatever. They're much more open to the possibility that this is real, and a lot of the kind of, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like there's people in the disclosure room who are just hoping for this to happen before it's too late, because or and sees all kind of resistance and this and that. But I think forget about that. Forget about the political thing. Just start making contact. Watch the sky. Do the meditation. And if you're worried about all these other things, then think about what can you do in your own life to try and change some of all these things. And people are always going, oh, but we need peace, we need free energy, we need blah blah blah, all these things. But this is something we have to achieve ourselves, somehow. And that's where the contact and the inner development and the more how should I say, unified field thought kind of thing, we should stop all this destroying and separation and try to unite more and fight these
I
things,
think I'm on the same line as you are, because I just about thinking about what's really happened if you should land physical, what's really happened in the society. And I found out it shouldn't be so good, maybe, because the society will react, and part of them will react negative.
The way that things are now, I think you're right. There's a big possibility that would be spun in a way, in a negative way. Also because, as you said, are we ready for that kind of contact? And I'm not sure, and also I was thinking when people say, and then we get this announcement from Barack Obama, how we are, whatever, official, or the United Nations will come forward with a committee saying blah blah. I even think they have a woman ready to, and but the thing is, the way the situation is now, you and me or Barack Obama are all the equal representatives of the human race, the way we have organized now, because we haven't decided, we haven't gone and voted and said we want Barack Obama to contact the aliens, and everybody agrees, when perhaps not everybody, but the majority. We can't even do that. We don't have a leader of the free world or the world or so for me the whole idea that this is going to happen somehow, is in the future somewhere, and not is necessarily close, because and people always say, why is the contact, why is the fuzzy pictures and why is it far away? Well, because as you said, they don't want to get too close to the military or scaring people or starting panic or religions or whatever, that's not why they're here. Not in, at least in my
Yes,
opinion.
of course. If they land, what we have found out, that people who has this contact, or they say they had, and they often could start a religion around them. They be a
Yes.
religious person and start a religion around them, and then they explain everything how it's out there and what it. Even if they say the same thing that you have just been saying,
Oh
they
yes.
be a religious person who everyone look up to, and
Yeah.
and and then they put some start to collect money and so on
Mhm.
around them,
Oh
and they're making up things. They not making up things. They could tell the truth, but we can't control what the truth is because
no,
it comes
and
through them. So that's the problem. So I can't think by myself. If you should contact people without to start a religion around it, you must doing in other way. Maybe it's this way you talk about now. That
but
everyone could have some contact, and then and they have their own contact inside and so on.
well, that's exactly kind of the idea of decentralizing
Yes.
this whole idea. Is also kind of a revolt or going against the cult
Hmm.
kind of thing that goes on. Oh, as you said, it's very very easy becomes a religion. And
Hmm.
as we talked about earlier, and now this is Christmas, the Christmas special thing. There's absolutely no reason to believe that a lot of religions have not been started by aliens visiting.
Yes, of
You know,
course. I
because
think it's so. But Jesus could come down like an alien or some way connected to
Mhm.
an alien and get educations and so on. So they
Oh,
try to do it that way. And after a while, they have started religion around them and different groups. Even if he says you should love each other and so on, they start fighting each other. So the alien must think, oh, the people on the earth are really crazy. How is it that you should love each other and do things? And they start to start a war against each other. Who's right?
oh,
And
oh
that's
yes.
that's the problem. And
That's
how you
always
can get around it must be that everyone
they're
have contact.
always fighting about which religion is the most peaceful.
Yes, they're fighting about that.
Yes, but you can see this at more than one level, because it doesn't have to be as we said, the contact, enlightened people like Jesus, Buddha, all these people. Some say, but they were aliens, they were extraterrestrials. Okay, that's a possibility. Another possibility is that they were, having contact, a strong contact with.
And they have a contact because
Mhm.
the smartest thing they can do, aliens, is to reincarnate here. They reincarnate as people. And then the people they are about 5, 6 years old. They get contact with
Mhm.
alien and get the education because they have a social security number, and they can tell them that they are people and come from have parents and so on and so on. They can talk about this. So this is a simple way to come in, because if they come in like alien and maybe look not look exactly that like us, they be killed directly from people who hate this.
Mhm.
But that's the thing they have done. I think is the simplest thing they have done it in the thousands and thousands of years.
Mhm.
So there should be about hundreds of thousands of aliens reincarnated here now. A lot
Oh
of
yes, but if
in
you
these
if
movements,
if
of
you believe
course.
if you believe that you can't die or somehow, because we kind of tend to believe that
Mm.
everybody's being reincarnated, and this experience, when this experience is over, you will have a new experience somewhere else, and it's kind of like the same consciousness having a repeated subjective experience, and that means that you might as well be reincarnated as a dog or as an alien. So I think that's true. But Tony, you know what? It's we've been talking for some time, and I am invited to a Christmas party in
Yes, yeah, I think so.
in the other end of the house. And so I think that I will say thank you very much. Hang on and stay for a bit. But and then I will say to everybody else, all the ET Let's Talk people and everybody
And
else who's
I
following.
should put on close down also.
Yes,
So-
but just hang on a second. I want to say goodbye privately afterwards. But right now we're just closing the live part of the hangout.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming, Tony. You really have some interesting views and points, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how it goes with the the UFO tower and everything. You're certainly doing what you can to try and make contact, and that's a great thing. So thank you for everybody who's been watching, will be watching, and thank you, Tony, for coming. And have a nice YuleTide. This is YuleTide Tom special. I dressed up like I promised. And we will see you in the Hangouts next year. Hopefully, we hope to have another New Year's visitor to show you, but you never know. So, yeah.
Should I close down?
So bye bye. Now I'm just gonna stop the broadcast. Bye bye.